Hello everyone, so welcome to today's class. So I know it's been a bit, but I wanted to repackage some course material in order to move into CSS. Now, before moving to the CSS, I'm just going to have to reiterate something. We have been dealing with HTML, I think, since this class started, and I want to say that if you have any questions in HTML, please do reach out to me personally or go back to my last video and watch it. You can also use the course materials provided to you, the PDFs and other course materials. If you have any issues with HTML, please make sure that you at least understand the base understanding of HTML before proceeding to CSS class in order to avoid any kind of confusion. So today is an introduction to CSS. I'm not doing anything overly complex today. Let us just introduce CSS as a course. So by the end of this lesson, you should clearly understand what CSS is. So let me go back to my document. Okay, so let me take this down and put some objectives. So at the end of this class, we should understand what CSS is. That's the first thing we're going to understand. The second thing we're going to understand is why CSS exists. Okay. Just to going to understand is how CSS works with HTML. The first thing we're also going to understand is CSS syntax. And the fifth and final thing we're going to understand is types of CSS. So these are our 5 major objectives for this class. We're going to start with the basics. So let's introduce CSS, at least in the base form of what the definition is. Now, this is mostly theory, it's mostly theoretical class. We're going to do a bit of, just one or two careless coding sessions just to make the theory sink in. But it's primarily a theory class, and the goal is understanding, not memorization. Remember, as I've said in my past classes, whenever we're doing theory, whenever we're having a theory class, everything might not sound reasonable, might not make much sense until we get to the practical aspect, but it's very good that you understand it. That when we get to the practical aspect, everything is already clear to you. So even if it doesn't make sense now, don't worry, just cool down. It's going to make much sense in the practical aspect. So now, I want to start with CSS. So what's CSS? CSS means cascading style sheet. That's the full meaning of CSS. It means cascading style sheet, and it's a styling language that is used to add styles and design to a HTML web page or website. It's used to style HTML content. In short, that's what it does. It styles HTML content. So as I've said before that HTML gives a website structure. It's used for adding content to the website. But again, if you're watching my past videos, I've always iterated that HTML, if you can see HTML as defining the content, it never tells the browser how the content looks. It only tells the browser what that content is. So that it's the work of CSS to tell the browser how that content looks. So if HTML gives structure, CSS gives the website appearance. Without CSS, the website is going to look plain. It's going to look like there's no color, no spacing. It's going to look like a document, as all the websites we've building so far looks like a basic plain document. No layout control. With CSS, you control the colors, you control the fonts, control the spacing, the layout, the responsiveness, the visual hierarchy, how everything looks. It's just the beauty, the appearance. That's what CSS does. If we go back to, so we say that if we go back to our house analogy, right in the beginning, I used a house analogy when I was HTML. We can say that while HTML is the blocks of cement and iron bars, then CSS is the paint, the parapet. I really hope I spelled this well. I guess PHP, I guess. The window blind and the POP. POP means plaster of Paris for those who are not into building. So in essence, if HTML is the skeleton, okay, this is where I am right now. If HTML is the skeleton, then CSS is the clothes, skin, shoes, glasses, all those things that add design, add style. That's why CSS exists. So now, when I'm talking about why CSS exists, it exists to make HTML content better. No, that's probably correct in the last time, I guess. CSS just simply tells the browser how the HTML element should look. And I said why it exists. It exists because websites were hard to maintain before. The design made it very boring and plain and prevented people from wanting to go further and read more. And then the kind of visual structure that made all the websites at least to look different and better. Let it not just look like a compilation of documents on the website. So it's used to separate the content from the design, used to make the website much, much easier to manage and style. So why CSS exists? Used to first of all style the HTML content. That's the most important one. Also used to separate content from design. Another thing it does is that it makes websites easier to manage. Another thing it does. And it also allows for consistent styling across many pages in a website. So let me just expand my capital. Okay, okay. Those are the four basic things it does. It makes the design consistent. If you are going with blue color as your main color theme for those who have done design here, or you have a color theme you're using, you can use that same color theme for all your website, all the pages on your website. Because you can have multiple pages, home page, about me, contact me. So this is basically why CSS exists. So now, how does CSS work with HTML? Because CSS does not work alone. That's one thing. Remember, HTML displays those content. It defines those content. In other words, CSS needs content to exist before it can style it. It cannot style what does not exist. If there is no header defined by the HTML, then CSS cannot style the header. Something needs to be there. So CSS does not work alone. It works on top of HTML. The browser reads the HTML structures and applies CSS rules to HTML elements and displays the final styled page. So the browser reads the HTML structure first and foremost, then it applies the rules given by CSS to those HTML elements and then displays the final design. So CSS, so let me just put that in. So how CSS works with HTML. I just explained this now, but I think let me put it into writing just in case. So I said CSS does not work alone. It works on top of HTML. We just discussed that now. When the code is run, the browser reads the HTML code first and then applies CSS rules, if any. Okay, so if any, it doesn't say anyone in those ones, and delivers the final styled output. So this is basically how CSS works with HTML. And just to note, CSS selects and targets HTML elements using tag names Tag name, class name. Remember, I said that class is an attribute. Tag is the HTML tag. Class is an attribute. And also ID names. So ID names. ID is also an attribute too. So let's see whether we can fix up all the errors right there. Okay, good. So now I also want us to know that CSS doesn't create any element. I said it before. It only styles what exists. Now what CSS cannot do, CSS cannot create content by itself. Let me move this down as a new page. So CSS cannot create content. It can only style the content by telling the browser how the content should look. That's what it cannot do. The HTML, the skeleton, CSS is including. So now I'm going into CSS syntax. So every CSS rule, so let me rephrase this. So every CSS rule, so every CSS code, we're talking about CSS syntax now. So every CSS code is written in a certain format. In essence, every CSS rule, because CSS code is called rules, follows a basic structure. So it follows a basic structure. And we have three main parts. So we have three main parts here. We have our selector, which is written here, our property, and our value. That's the three things. Now, you need to cram this structure because this is how all CSS code is written when writing CSS as standalone. It has a selector, the property, and the value. So now, the selector tells the CSS what element to style. It is me explaining each one properly. So here I'm going to have us go into our code. Our code is. So let's open up our code document. Let me find this. Okay. Okay. Let's open up new file. Okay. So this is okay. I will use this. I want to do something a bit more detailed. It's a lot more like elements than HTML. So let's look at something else. Yes, this is a lot more detailed. So now I want to go back to that selector property and value. I said the selector tells the CSS what element to style. I don't need this. Okay, let's move this out here. Good. It tells the CSS what element to style. Example, you can style paragraph, you can style headers, you can style a button, you can style a section. So now, this is now selectors. You can think of selectors as the target. What do you want to style? What are you trying to select? What, because obviously when you write a rule like oh change the color of what? That's what selector does. So let's put in our style tag. And let's say let me first open this code and run it so you see what the output looks like. This is the output here. And let's say this my HTML class portfolio. I want to move it to the center. I want to change the color to red. That's what I want to do. First of all, I have to find so this is it here. This is the tag I want to affect here. And I want to select this tag, H1. This tag here, H1. All I have to do is come here and select it. H1 to my curly braces, very important. And that is the selector, H1. The selector is telling me the H1 here is telling me what I want to style. So when I put this H1, the browser is going to look for any tag that has the name H1 and pick it. So that's what it does. So now property, I'm going to go back to our class here. So property basically asks the question, what do you want to change? So now you know what you want to style. You have selected it already. The browser knows what to look for, whether it's a tag. Now there are different ways of selecting, but we'll go back to that. So now property is now that you know what you want to style, what do you want to change? That's property. What do you want to change? You want to change the color, you want to change the position, you want to change the size, you want to change the framing. So what do you want to change? That's what property does. And in this case, I said here in my document that I want to move here to the center and also make it red. So let's start with the color. So I'm going to come down here and the color. So this color here, that's the property because I want to change the color. So I put color there. And then value is what I want to change it to. So that I know it's color I want to change. So the question is, what do I want to change it to? That's the question. What I want to change it to. And in this case, I want to change it to red. This is the value here. I know that I'm selecting my H1. The property I want to change is the color. I want to change the color, and the color I want to change it to is red. At the end, I have to do just my semicolon. Very important. So look at the format I wrote it in. The selector, then curly braces. Inside the curly braces, I have the property, then double colon. And after writing the value, I add the semicolon. I save this, go back here and refresh. As you can see, it's red. And if I want to do another thing like, I don't know, probably move it to the center. So text align, because I'm going to align the text. I'll align it somewhere else. Center is the value. So center, come back here and refresh. It's in the center. So that's how three of them communicate. Selector, property, and value. So now, important syntax rules. These are some very important syntax rules. Let's go back here. Okay, let me replace this note. So important syntax rules. The first important syntax rule is properties and values are separated by a colon or double colon as we call it, which is this. As you can see, if I come back here, as you can see, property in the left side, value in the right side, is a colon separating them. A colon here, so double colon. So that's the first important rule of syntax. Second rule is each rule, so each value is ended by a semicolon, which is this. Okay, click the wrong one. This is semicolon. This is a colon, ampersand bracket, so I can know what I'm talking about. Yeah. So this is a semicolon and this is a colon. As you can see, if you go back to our browser here, they all end in a semicolon. So that's something very important to. Another thing also is CSS is case sensitive to correct spelling. So CSS is case sensitive to correct spelling. Correct spelling. Extra spaces does not break CSS. Like if you add space, for example, now I come here and I add more space here, it doesn't break the CSS. It will still be in the center. But missing any of these columns, like your double column, your semicolon, your curly braces, they can break the CSS. So make sure to always add them. If the syntax is wrong, the browser might either ignore the rule or mess up while writing it. Oh, now going down to types of CSS. So now there are three main types of CSS that we have. We have our inline CSS, our internal CSS, and our external CSS. So now, these are the three main types of CSS. Now, types of CSS doesn't mean that they are different types. It just means that there are different ways we write CSS depending on the condition. And we're not judging which is best, at least not yet, but just understanding them. So, inline CSS is the first one we're going to treat. Now, if you have been following this class since, you're probably familiar with it, even if I've not officially introduced it yet, I've used it a lot. This is the CSS that is written directly inside the HTML tag, and it's written using the style attribute. So written directly, let me add directly here, directly inside the HTML tag. I guess I shouldn't put and here. And it is written using the style attribute. Like for example, this example we have here. As you can see, H1 style. I'm sure you guys have used this before. Color and blue. So now, there are some things to note about this. Let me first copy, let me first go here. The first thing I'm going to note is that it only affects that element right inside. It's written inside the HTML tag and it has the highest priority. What do I mean by the highest priority? If I come back to my code, I can see my H1 is red. But then, even though I still have this here, let me remove this space. Even though I still have this here, if I go back to that same H1 and I add my style, which you should know how to do by now. If you don't know how to add this style, at least please go back to the last videos and watch it. And inside this style, if I add color and I change the color to blue instead of red, so let's do blue. Even though this is retargeting the H1 with red and it has blue, the color that is going to show there is blue. Every time that you have two types of CSS, for example, this is internal CSS, we're getting to that. This is inline. Whenever the CSS is written inside the same line as the tag, the browser will choose it over no matter like over any other CSS you write. The browser will always choose this one. It will always choose this one. If I come here and write text align left, I come and choose text align left, and I save, come back here and refresh. As you can see, it moved it back. Even though up here, I see it says center, so it always chooses this one. That's the highest priority. Very important. And the advantage is it's quick for testing. Obviously, writing your code inside here is messy. So it's quick to test and it overrides other CSS, meaning I can test it very easily. But it is not advisable for good project development because it's very messy. Writing everything line by line very messy. It's very hard to maintain. You make a mistake, you have to go line by line to fix. It's not reusable and it's bad for any reasonable project, only for testing. So use this when you are doing quick tests, or let me say they just just quickly fix, just one small quick fix, but not the full website. It's powerful, but it's dangerous if you overuse it. It can make your website very, very messy. The second one, and remember, it's always written using the style attribute. This style attribute tells the browser that it is CSS you're about to write here, and it doesn't need a selector. I mean, obviously, it doesn't need a selector because it's written inside the tag. It already knows what to select. It can never select. You can write your this sort of inline CSS inside here and expect it to target paragraph tags. It cannot work. So that's why you only add your property and value. You don't add a selector because it already knows what it's only one option. Just like if you go to a restaurant now and there's only one thing on the menu. There doesn't even need to be a menu. You can't select anything. That's it. Either eat or you don't eat it. So that's how it is. The second kind of CSS is called internal CSS. And this is CSS, so I'm going to create a bit of space here. This is CSS that is written in the HTML page using the style tags. So it's written inside the style tags in any part of the HTML file, as long as it's in that file. And it's written like this. You add your style tag. Remember, just like the style attribute, the style tag also tells the browser that you're about to write CSS. Then you put it there. And some key differences is that number one, it can affect based on how you select, it can affect any element or any tag or any class name in that page. As long as it's inside that page, it can affect it. That's number one. Number two, it's cleaner than this stuff. It's cleaner than inline CSS. It's good for single page project or fairly small project and it's easy to understand for beginners. So you have to just create a style tag and write them inside here. And here you need a selector because you can select multiple things now. It can be the header, can be a paragraph, so you need a selector here. Of course, the disadvantage now is that if you have like 10 pages, let me say home, about, contact, my work, 10 different pages on your website, and you want to style them, it's going to be very, very stressful because you have to write the same styling code across 10 pages. That's extremely stressful. So now it's used for small projects, demos, single page website, or website like one or two pages. But it's like the middle ground. The real CSS that most people use is the external CSS. So external CSS is let me get to the document where I had that. Okay. So external CSS, this is the type of CSS where the CSS code is written in a separate file, which is saved as a CSS file. You just have your HTML file, write it in a separate CSS file, and link to as many HTML files as possible. Now the use case, one CSS code page can apply to as many pages as you have links. I'm going to give you an example of this. I'm going to open another page here. I'm going to open contact in my code. So let's have it open up in my contact page. And I can see we also have a H1 here. So now I'm also going to have a page. So I've already created a page here. I'm going to delete this page. Oh, no, I won't delete the page. I'm going to create a new page. So new file, and let me say style 2 dot css. Why isn't dot css for this? We'll save it. So now, all I have to do is let me copy this code I wrote here. Now, as when I was using internal CSS and I want to apply the same H2 style into your contact, I have to come here and rewrite it. And if there's anything I want to change, I have to change for two of them. But here, all I have to do is just delete all this I've done. Come here to style 2, paste it here. You see, I don't add any style tag or style article because this is a CSS file. It's expecting CSS code. I want to stress myself adding all those things. It's not even, you don't add it at all. Then I have to just come here and add my link. So the attribute is called link, and inside there I add my relationship. So this rel means relation, style sheet. Relation is saying what's the relationship between this file and that file. What is that file to you? In other words, who am I to you or what are we now? What is that file to? And in this case, the file is a style sheet because it's a styling file. And the href means HTML reference, which we all know what HTML reference means by now. So rel means the attribute means a relationship of the linked document. In this case, the style sheet. And href means HTML reference and it specifies the URL, shows you where it is. And this case is style 2. That's what we save. So now, if I also come here and do the same thing, so I already done the put style 2. If I come back to this page, let me open this up. I'm going to say that it applied the same styling here. So both here and here. Okay, here, sorry, in my HTML, I forgot that in my index I had an inline CSS which overrides the external. Remember, inline is always prioritized. So now they're the same. If I want to make the color, let me see, I want to make it bigger. I can come back here to my style too. Font size. I can make it 200 px. And now it applies to both pages. So if I save that from here, huge. I go to my contact page also and sorry, go there and refresh, huge. So it affects all of them. So it's very, very good when working with multiple files. In fact, it's the best when working with multiple files. The HTML is clean because you wrote it, sorry, the CSS is clean compared to a separate file. It's reusable, you can maintain it easily. It has the best performance. But then you need to be careful when using it because if you make one mistake, they affect all the pages. So that's it. So now, CSS priority, as I said, inline CSS is the most prioritized. If you ever write it, you're going to choose it first. If it's not inline, you browser look for internal. There's no internal, there's no external. So even as we have our external here, if I still go inline, if I still go to my contact me now and reduce the size here in the H1, so I come here, put my style and put font size and put that 50 px instead of 200 and save and go back here. It will reduce even though it's 200. So it always chooses inline first. After inline, it chooses internal. When it goes to another, that it chooses external. So CSS is called cascading style sheet for a reason. When there are multiple styles affected, or when there are multiple styles laid out for a single element, it follows the priority order. Inline CSS is the highest priority. Internal is the next in line. External has the lowest priority. It's only if those two are not affecting a tag or an element, it's only then that it can actually apply external. So let's summarize what we've learned today. We have learned that CSS styles HTML. We have learned that CSS controls appearance. We have learned about CSS syntax. We have learned there are three types of CSS, which is internal, inline, and external. We also learned that CSS is a priority system. So next class we'll focus on how to select an element, whether by tag, class name, or ID. Also focus on those selectors, we focus heavy on those selector, class and ID, and we focus on the box model. And kind of get into it and go a bit more code in our next class. The CSS is not about memorizing properties. It's about understanding how design works. Once you understand the structure, the rest becomes easy. That's the foundation. So again, if there's any questions, please make sure to reach out to me personally, and I'll be leaving you with this. Any other inquiries, let me know down in the comment section, or if you have my number, just reach out to me personally. So I'll see you all in the next class.